Thanks, music team, for a great set this morning. Hey, is there something going on? There's a lot more people here than normal for a Monday chapel. But yes, I suspect many of you have come this morning expecting news, and I have an excellent update for you. There is news. So I would like to, without further ado, welcome our board chair to the platform to go ahead and begin this morning's introduction.
Good morning and welcome. For those that don't know me, my name is Mike Zahara, and as Grant mentioned, I serve as the chair of NNU's Board of Trustees. Today is the culmination of a months-long process that began this past June when our president, Joe Pearsall, announced his plan to retire during the summer of 2025. Upon this announcement, the board retained Faith Search Partners to assist with the search process. A significant part of this process included 2 days of on-campus meetings in September with many of you, faculty, staff, students, and other constituents to hear what characteristics, skills, and abilities each of you felt was important for our next president to possess. This work guided Faith Search Partners in preparing a presidential profile that was presented to, reviewed by, and acted upon by the board during its October 24 meetings. At these same meetings, the board appointed a search committee, and the public was invited to nominate candidates. Nominations were received during the months of October and November. Nominees were contacted, data was collected, and the vetting process began. In December, following a significant amount of remote work, the search committee met in person to continue the vetting process, which was followed by in-person interviews in January of this year. This past week, our Board of Trustees met and interviewed the search committee's nominee. The interview was extensive, thoughtful, and most importantly, prayerful. On Friday, NNU's Board of Trustees unanimously elected Dr. Mark DeMichael to serve as the 14th president of Northwest Nazarene University. Dr. DeMichael is accompanied today by his wife, Kim, who is on stage with him. Dr. DeMichael is a highly qualified servant leader bringing extensive experience in higher education leadership, having served in student development and athletics at Indiana Wesleyan University for over 25 years, most recently as Vice President of Student Development and Athletics. Before his tenure at IWU, yeah, you're right, it is a tongue twister. I said IWU in the press conference. Dr. DeMichael, before his tenure at IWU, Dr. DeMichael spent several years as a faculty member and head baseball coach at Eastern Nazarene College, his alma mater. Dr. DeMichael holds a doctorate degree in educational leadership from the University of the Cumberlands, a master's degree in physical education from Azusa Pacific University, and a bachelor's degree in physical education from Eastern Nazarene College. His deep commitment to the Wesleyan holiness tradition, collaborative leadership style, and passion for student success make him a strong fit for the NNU community. I have asked President-elect DeMichael to bring some greetings, and then he and Kim will be, and I pause, because I don't want to call it an interview, because I think you refer to it as a conversation. They will engage in a conversation with your chaplain, Grant Miller. It's my distinct honor to introduce to you the 14th president of NNU, Dr. Mark DeMichael.
Well, good morning. I don't know if it's felt like a while since you've been updated on anything, but it's felt like a long time since I first looked forward to meeting you as a community. So it is, Kim and I are both excited, privileged, and humbled to be here with you today. Before I say my brief greetings, I know we've got quite a conversation ahead of us with Grant. I hear he's good at it and that we can trust him, so I'm counting that is the truth. First of all, can I say from here, congratulations to the men's basketball team for qualifying for the national tournament. Well done, and we will be following closely and praying for all of you young men. I want to thank the Board of Trustees and the search committee. The search committee was made up of representatives of all the different constituents in the school, and I specifically today, because it's chapel, I'm going to call out Ben Wyckoff. Is Ben here? I know it's always, there he is. Hey, Ben. I want you to know as students that Ben represented you and advocated for your voice in that search committee as well as any student I've ever seen in that kind of leadership role. So, well done, Ben. And I have already been given a preview of coming attractions that next year's student body president, Kendry McGath, is quite a leader. And Kendry, wherever you are, I'm looking forward to working with you and getting to know you, Kendry. Kim and I had the privilege of spending a few hours with President Joel Pearsall. I know you call him Joel, so I will too. And Nikki at their house the other night. And wow, amazing servant leaders. And I want you to know, students, we got to experience Nikki's oatmeal cookies and 7-layer cookies. And the 7-layer cookies, I believe, were anointed. So you have a lot to be grateful for, those of you who have experienced that, because that is amazing. But most of the time in those hours with Joel and Nikki were spent talking about you, them sharing transformational stories of you, the students, and the joy that it is to serve the mission of this institution and to watch over 3, 4, 5, 6 years that some of you are here to watch God work in your lives. And I want you to know, students, there are faculty and staff. It is so easy for us to see so early that faculty and staff here love you and are committed to serving the Lord by mentoring and discipling you. So that was so evident in Joel and Nikki and the joy they had in sharing those stories with us. And we look forward to joining you in that journey. We believe in the mission of Northwest Nazarene University. The thing that jumped out of the page, the first thing when I saw the opportunity to be the president of Northwest Nazarene University was the mission. And my first thought was, wow, Lord, this is a place that feels aligned with our call and our hearts for what Christian higher education is called to be. So to step into that process just felt right. The world's experiencing a time when I believe there is a void of Christ-centered servant leaders. And it's places like Northwest Nazarene University and the mission of this place that are going to fill that void, because it's you, the students, as you learn, as you grow spiritually, academically, as you invest in allowing God to prepare you for the vocation and the calling that he has called you to under the tutelage of amazing faculty. At the same time, you will be growing in your faith in Jesus. And when you go out in the world, you will be creative and redemptive agents to the world, and you will fill that void. And we are so excited to be a small part of partnering with you in that journey over the next several years. So thank you. We look forward to meeting all of you and to building relationships with all of you students, faculty, staff alike. I'm not great at names. She's really good at names. So if you see her standing behind me as we're talking and meeting people for the second time, please forgive me for not remembering right away, but we'll get there and I will learn them and it'll be a joy. That whole process will be a joy. So thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, as our president-elect and first lady-elect, I don't know what the formal title would be there, are settling in, I will just update you, those of you who are visiting here on a Monday for the first time in a while. On Mondays, we like to have what we call conversations, where we ask a faculty or staff member or another member of our community to come, and we just sit and talk a little bit about life. Now, we don't have a ton of time this morning, and so we can't hope to hit everything, but I am looking forward to maybe a few minutes for our students, our faculty, staff, and other members of the community who are here to get to know you a little bit better. So I'll just open up the floor. One of the things I love to ask is, so where are you currently? I think that's something that maybe folks haven't picked up at this point. And where are you going to be departing from to join us here in just a few short months?
Well, I thought everyone pulled out their cell phones and checked as soon as my name was
mentioned. Well, we blocked the Wi-Fi in here, so yeah.
Okay, that's good. We are currently at Indiana Wesleyan University in Marion, Indiana, and we have been there we'll come at the end of this year, will be the end of 28 years serving at Indiana Wesleyan University.
And how are you, in what capacity do you serve? Because I know you also are engaged at Indiana Wesleyan as well.
Yes, I just retired last summer.
Oh, congratulations.
So I'm just doing part-time.
A little pre-planning maybe? Just the word of the Lord just came to you and said, retire. No, I'm just...
No. 25 years in the School of Teacher Education at Indiana Wesleyan University.
Well, I know a little bit of your story. We're not going into this conversation completely blind. By the way, just so you know, this isn't the normal floor. I feel like a lot of people are going to be telling you things that aren't normal. This is a false floor for the musical. So a little plug for the Music Man. Folks, come on out this weekend. Looking forward to a great show. But I would just love to, one of the things that we like to ask is, where did you grow up, and how did the journey start for you? I think maybe that's what we could hope to accomplish in the next few minutes, is just giving our folks in the room a sense of where you come from and what motivates you and what we can look forward to in terms of the leadership that is going to be coming this summer.
Well, I was born in Ohio, but lived all over the Northeast. I was a pastor's kid, and I was that pastor's kid for much of my growing up years. And my parents were both ordained in the Salvation Army. I was raised in the Salvation Army and felt called to go to Eastern Nazarene College. Lived all over the Northeast. I went to 7 different schools. That's just the life in the Salvation Army. And went to Eastern Nazarene College, and I have to admit, I quickly joined the Nazarene Church. But I fell in love with a Nazarene girl before I fell in love with the Church of the Nazarene. I'll be honest with you.
I think there might be a few people whose story goes the same way in this room, for sure.
It works out. Stick with the strategy. It works. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. How about you?
Yeah, and I grew up in Connecticut.
Okay.
My grandfather was a Nazarene pastor in Scotland, and he moved his family to Massachusetts, to this country, because he wanted them to have a Christian college experience. And so lots of cousins and aunts and uncles have gone through a Nazarene school back east, Quincy, Massachusetts. And that's where we met.
You know, I'm not sure if anybody's talked to you about this, but I think I'm not the official university historian, and someone in the room might correct me, but I'm fairly certain, actually, you might be the 6th or 7th president in NAU's history who is an alum of ENC, of Eastern Nazarene College. So there's a really interesting historical pipeline between our schools.
We'll have to find out whether those were good experiences.
Yeah, no, it's probably, okay. I think, we keep going back, I guess. So, and I think a really cool part of your story together is that you were both student athletes at ENC. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what that experience was like, and maybe even how that resulted in your connection.
It was a big piece. I won't speak for you, but I played both soccer and baseball at Eastern Nazarene College, and I'll be honest with you, I went to college so I could keep playing sports. I mean, that was where I was as a immature 18-year-old. Fortunately, God works at Nazarene colleges and transformed that heart while I was there. And a big part of that was my freshman year, I was back early for preseason soccer and walked into the gym, and the volleyball team was practicing. And and I have an older sister who was a year ahead of me at Eastern Nazarene College, and she had come back my senior year of high school, come home from college, just raving about this junior mentor, a student mentor she had who called her big sister that was helping her journey through her freshman year. So I walked into the gym my freshman year before soccer practice, and my sister was in there and said, I want you to meet Kim, my big sister, who was a setter on the volleyball team. And she walked out, and I swear there was a bright light behind her as she walked out. And so athletics, college athletics, is what brought us together.
Okay, so Kim, you were a setter on the volleyball team when you first met Mark. And if I'm doing the math correctly, you are a senior, and this freshman's coming in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, go get it, girl. Like, you do what you want, right?
Light, yeah.
Was there equal light on him as he walked in, or was it the darkness kind of?
Little freshman soccer player, had the European, it wasn't called a mullet yet, but it was the thing that soccer players.
It was good. Good for
Yeah.
you, man. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I did know his big sister. So
Okay, yeah.
We got to know each other. It took a little while, but we got there.
That's great. You know, we have something in common. My now spouse also happened to be a senior when I was a freshman, and you know, it grows you up a little bit. You know, it's good. It's good for us. Okay, so you're both at ENC. You're experiencing life together. Kim, you graduate, and what's the track then for your relationship? But also, it also is part of your story too, professionally, and as far as how that God kind of guides your steps. So what does that look like as you begin to move out of college and into the
Right,
working world?
and that when I met Mark, I was in that senior place where you're trying to look forward, what's going to happen next, preparing for that. He was just kind of getting used to all the things college, and I wanted him to have that. So I stayed actually one more year and got a master's in the following year, and then I moved to California. Southern California is where teaching jobs were. In New England, there weren't a lot of teaching jobs at that point, and so I landed up out there. And we had to communicate across a lot of miles.
This is pre-FaceTime, right? This is a whole different world.
Cell phone, yeah, all the things. And so he came out a couple times. I'd fly back. And I was teaching biology and coaching some volleyball and trying to figure out life.
So during that time, what's your plan look like, Mark? Are you thinking, I'm going to move out to California, I've got a game plan? You're studying physical education,
Physical
right?
education,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, it was, I was more convinced that this was going to work than she was at that point. So, yeah, it was about, and I did have some growing up to do, and I think, the Lord provides even in ways that when we think, oh, come on, really? She's going to California? I had some growing up to do. I cut my hair, first of all. But then it was, the Lord was needed to work in my heart and needed to transform me in understanding where my value and where my identity need to be as opposed to where it had been. And, I believe to this day, I'm not sure that would have happened quite the same way had she still been there. I needed to be in that moment of life. And as much as I wanted this to happen, the Lord had to say, you need to trust me. And if it's going to happen, just follow me, grow up, grow in me, and trust me. And, he was really faithful in that, even through some interesting times.
Yeah. And I was the kind of student, maybe some of you are this way, that you're always kind of thinking ahead and worried about what's next and planning and trying to get there, wanting to be a good teacher, wanting to be all those things. And I needed to learn from him how to be in that moment and to enjoy what is. And that was a big piece of my attraction to him, was his ability to lean into the moment and enjoy the ride and let God be a part of those moments rather than what's always out there and where do I need to be going next.
That's really wonderful when it feels like your skills, your interests, your passions start to align and you make each other better. It's beautiful. If we fast forward a little bit, you're out in Southern California, you get married and you start kind of making a home and careers as teachers in the San Bernardino area, right? And so where does it look like then? I know you were there for several years, coaching and just all wrapped up in that system. Where does it start to turn for you to start to think, well, maybe higher education, maybe moving into another area of education would be where God's leading us? How does that happen for you both?
Yeah, well, we both, we had our first daughter out in California, and we both started pursuing the next degree. Kim went into her doctoral work at University of California, Riverside, and I started my master's at Azusa Pacific. And it was in that process, I think, that God started really challenging us and talking to us about the transformation that happened for us at Eastern Nazarene College. the people that he placed in our lives at that point that completely changed the trajectory of our lives, and challenging us to be open to doing that work. Eastern Nazarene College had such an impact on us, and to give back felt like God was leading us down that path. We were both committed public school people, but he was really challenging us to think outside of that.
And part of my journey, too, was looking around at my colleagues in teaching and seeing that when there was a higher sense of purpose outside of self to serve students well, that mattered in our schools and for our students. And so thinking about being a part of that training process and helping prepare teachers to be in those challenging moments, but also to bring the light and love of Christ with them in a way that can impact in ways that we can't in our own strength do that. And that's why we began to kind of study and prepare and think about, well, maybe it would be wonderful to be a part of that training process.
Well, I love how both of you are expressing ideas, thoughts that I have heard from several who are in this community, right? This sense of calling, this desire to be part of the process for students and to give back into the same kind of process that was so formative for you. And so God kind of opens the door for both of you to be able to go back and take roles at ENC. And what were those roles, if you could remind everybody?
I was in the school teacher education,
Case.
Teaching all the foundational things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was brought back as a professor of physical education and the head baseball coach.
Okay.
We did both of those things back then.
Yeah, right. That's a lot of work. And how long were you at Eastern in those capacities? Or I guess how long were you in the Quincy area for that time?
For 3 years. Our oldest daughter was born in Southern California, and our youngest daughter arrived in Boston. So we're starting our family at that point. So we're just there 3 years. Mm-hmm.
So there for 3 years, and life kind of picks up, family's growing. There's lots of, right, as a dad of young children, I know life just kind of comes at you really quickly. The important things in life start to kind of catalyze very quickly for you. And so what does then the next transition, because it's really not that far away, that you're not at Eastern that long until Indiana comes calling, right? And sometimes that's a good call, sometimes it's a nerve-wracking call, but what was it like as you started to have that conversation in life?
Well,
Go ahead.
the only thing we knew about Indiana was Nazarene General Assembly happened to land in Indianapolis quite a bit, but otherwise we hadn't spent a whole lot of time in Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana wasn't on the radar. Third year, life was crazy. We had 2 young girls. We were both working full-time. And we really started feeling God prompting us to say, okay, maybe you need to pause a little bit and refocus. And that took form in a call for Kim to step away temporarily from full-time teaching to spend more time with the girls. And that seems like a normal call. It's not so normal when you're living in a place where you're barely be able to survive paycheck to paycheck with 2 of you working full-time. And when God says, oh, by the way, really want you to do this, and the person that he's calling to step away actually is getting paid more than the other guy.
Oh, yeah, I've been there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm not a math major, but the math's not working on that. So we spent a lot of time in prayer together, a lot of time crying together, questioning why, and this doesn't make sense. And the Lord, he broke us and just said, trust me. So we were at her mom's house in Oklahoma, and we were on the front porch praying and crying some more, and said, okay, Lord, if this is what you're calling us to do, we don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to trust you in it. And within 24 hours after that prayer, my mother-in-law received a call from my former boss at Eastern Nazarene College, who that January had accepted the position of head men's basketball coach at Indiana Wesleyan University. And I don't know how he got my mother-in-law's number. We didn't have cell phones back then, landlines, yellow pages. And so I answered the phone. He said, Mark, yeah. He said, I just talked to the AD at Indiana Wesleyan. The head baseball coach just resigned. Do you think you'd be interested? Indiana, who knew? So we actually drove back. When we drove back at the end of that week, we stopped by the university, met with the AD. And a month later, God had opened the door for us to move to Indiana. And the combination of cost of living and all the financial things, God enabled us to move to Indiana, put a down payment on a nice little starter home, and for Kim to step away from teaching and survive and live. So it was God's plan, and just a testament to his faithfulness.
Kim, how was that transition for you? Did it feel like this is really the right time? How did it work to sort of process through those big decisions? I know we've got a room full of young people who are processing through big life decisions. So what does that look like as you sort of seek the will of the Lord? And I'm sure this could even be a question about this whole process that you've just gone through. It feels like we've all gone through it, honestly.
Yes.
How's that been for you?
Yeah, it starts with praying together. And in those moments, being honest then with each other about what we're feeling and thinking, and then praying some more, and letting Scripture be a part of that prayer process. And from that, then looking toward advice from others to let them be a part of that. We kind of realized in Boston, again, with just the demands, that family needed to come first at that point, and that in that, he would be with us along that journey. Again, Indiana was unfamiliar. Idaho is a new place for us. We've experienced kind of the other three corners of the country. We've taught public school in Southern California. We grew up in New England. Parents were in Florida for a bit, so now we get to come to the great Northwest, and we're looking forward to that. But the uncertainty, but then trusting the Lord, being in those moments and trusting that he's going to inform our hearts and our minds. And at some point along the way, there will either be a sense of peace and that this is the right peace, or there'll be a sense of, okay, we got to rethink and reconsider.
Yeah, I love that. I think so often when people are imagining and praying for direction from the Lord, they're hoping for a lightning bolt, right? Or some sort of like shining light, if you will, right? And so often it really comes down to just praying that God would sharpen your discernment and your ability to listen to the Spirit and to listen to God's wills for you through the people that you trust and mentors that can give you feedback. So that's wonderful. We're chewing through the time, and I know we want to end with Joel and Nikki praying for you both. So I will just end with this question, which I like to end with all of the folks we have in conversations. But if you could imagine yourself sitting in this room when you were a college student and maybe hearing someone speak from the front, what would you have wanted to hear? What do you want to communicate to those in the room about God's will for them? What can help them? What can guide them? And just, or even just the most simple practical advice? Yeah.
I'll start this time. I would tell you, as one lots of years ago now, that if you are one of the worriers or the thinking ahead, what's next? Where do I need to go? How do I do this well now? But where am I going? And what is God calling me to? I would again say to you what I learned from Mark is to just be present in your own life and heart right now. Talk to God every day. Let him talk to you. And then look forward to all the opportunities. Quite frankly, as life moves forward, you're not going to have the kind of opportunities to engage in spiritual things and academic things, community. Lean into these moments now and enjoy that because it really is about the journey more necessarily than what's out there next. Let him be in those moments because your life will be richer and deeper and just better if you're here now and do these things. And you're in a community that loves you dearly. People work here because they believe that you have that divine potential and they want to be a part of celebrating that and nurturing that. And they're praying for you. And that's a wonderful benefit and blessing. So be present. Enjoy that. Take it in.
Yeah, I wish someone would have sat me down and had a real long conversation about what is Christ-like humility really. You know, I was raised in the church, and I was raised believing that humility, if I was going to be humble, it meant that I had to always, never admit that I was good at anything, because I was arrogant. And that's false humility. You know, every person sitting in this room, you are all fearfully and wonderfully made in God's image, and he has gifted every single one of you. And the first step in really growing into Christ-like humility is acknowledging those things that you're good at, those gifts and talents and skills that God has given you. Acknowledge that they exist. Acknowledge that they are a gift. They are a gift from God. They are not because of you. They are because of him. When you do that, you grow and you develop those to bring him glory and to deflect all of those accomplishments, all the things that you thrive in because of these gifts It's with a thankful and grateful heart to God and to God's kingdom. And then what's amazing about that, I wish I would have known this in college or lived it in college. What's amazing about that is the freedom and the joy that comes when you are purely living in your skills and talents for God's kingdom and God's glory. It is an amazing thing. It is a life-changing thing. And I pray that for everyone.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. Would you all just give one more round of applause and say thank you? And then we're going to have Joel and Nikki and Mike. We didn't really rehearse this part, so we'll figure out kind of where we're all going. But Joel and Nikki are going to come.
Thank you, Grant, for helping the NNU community get to know the DeMichaels better today. And thank you, Mark and Kim. We are looking forward to your leadership. Before our president prays, Dr. DeMichael will assume his responsibilities during the summer of 2025, and he will be fully engaged as NNU's next president when our students arrive in August. And as Grant said, before we bring this chapel to a close, our president will be praying for the DeMichaels, but also be praying for NNU as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Why don't you stand with me, would you? Loving and eternal God, we are full today, for we have a sense that you have been at work, not only in the lives of the DeMichaels, but here in the life of NNU. And now at this moment in time, we see those journeys cross, and we're grateful. I pray, God, that you would be with Mark and with Kim as they now enter into a season of transition, as they say farewell to deep friendships, as they are involved in processes that will fill the gaps that are caused by their move here. But we already have a sense, God, that you've been out in front of this the whole time, and we trust that you will continue to do that. So be with them. Help them to have a keen sense of your presence and peace. And be with NNU, a place that for over 100 years has simply sought to reflect you and to remind us all that we really are to seek first your kingdom and that you'll take care of all the rest. So help us to continue to do that work here at NNU. And we pray, God, that you would be in the middle of it all. And we'll be careful to give you the praise and glory for all the good that comes of it. We pray it in the name of your Son, who we call Savior, Jesus. Amen. Have a great day.